partners in Nelta and the British Council to use your image in photographs, videotapes, and electronic reproduction. Content may be included on digital and print media to promote our programs, but will not be used for commercial purposes. We have 5 objectives. One is the framework. Number one, one of the objectives for this webinar is the framework for reflecting on practice. 2 is ICT and learning assessment. 3 is Kenya's journey through assessment. 4 is practical orientation and integrating ICT in assessment. And lastly, we shall look at the way forward. Introduction. Okay, our first presenter is Rukia Mohammed, General Secretary, LPAC, facilitator, trainer, and a counselor. Engages with schools through English conversation clubs, facilitates professional development for teachers, an advocate for social-emotional learning, trauma-informed classrooms, and dealing with global issues. Over 10 years experience in engaging individuals and teams on reflective practices. Rukia, you're welcome. And our second presenter is Jane Njeru Maru, Vice Secretary General LPAC, teacher of English language, trainer and facilitator. Teacher of English language for over 10 years, engages colleagues across sub-Saharan Africa through professional development on best classroom practices, an alumni and a mentor of the Teacher Champion program by the British Council. You're most welcome, Jane. Okay, I will welcome Rukia to take us through the session. Rukia, you're very warmly welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine, for that warm welcome. So probably as we start, you can introduce yourself in the chat. And also, as a recap, let us maybe put in the chat what is assessment, why do we assess? These are sessions that we had earlier. And you can even mention the different types of assessment that you know of. Catherine, you can be checking for me if there's anything in the chat. What is assessment? Why do we assess? And mention different types of assessment that you know of. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yes, Rukia.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, you are.
Is there anything in the chat?
Do you have something? I think someone is giving us a type of assessment, and that is formative assessment.
Okay. Why do we assess?
Okay. We have Elton, Matthew saying summative assessment. I think they're giving us types of assessment. Elton, assessment is a form of evaluation that is geared toward knowing the progress of learning.
Thank you.
We have Amoni, assessment is examining progress at doing something. Anthony.
Thank you.
Hello, Anthony, you're most welcome. You're most welcome, Arthur. We have Faith. Faith is saying assessment is measurements to gauge if learners grasped concepts. Yes, Nora, you're welcome. And Anthony is saying evaluation of progress. Cynthia, you're welcome from Elpac. So far, that's what we have in the chat box.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Now
something's coming. We have something from Omar. Assessment is doing something like students doing homework.
wow.
Okay, Amon is saying
Well,
why
that's a very easy way of explaining to us, and it's easy for us to understand in that way.
And let's just take this. Amon is saying why do we assess? To evaluate achievement of objectives, either at the end of the engagement or to chart ways of facilitating improvement. Thank you, Amoni. Isaac, you're
Thank you.
welcome. Okay.
So now we go to the next part. I'm just asking myself, what's your philosophy? Probably you're wondering, why am I asking about philosophy and you're talking about assessment? But there's someone by the name Farrell in 2019. He said that philosophy is a window to the roots of a teacher's practice, because a philosophy of practice means each observable behavior has a reason that guides it, even if it's implicit. Okay, so let's have this in mind as we talk about reflecting on assessment and as we talk about assessment. Let this be our foundation, and maybe when we finish, we're going to come back and look at whether we've internalized why we need to look at our philosophy when it comes to assessment. Okay, so by the same person, Farrell, he has given us different stages of the reflective framework. So he was talking about teaching in general. I adapted it to assessment because that's our topic today. And probably if I can get someone from the team to just read for me about philosophy, if you can see my screen. Anyone, please just read for me what is under the philosophy part.
Let me come in.
Yes, please.
Says, who are you? What experiences shape you as a teacher? What are your beliefs as a teacher?
All right, thank you, Stanley Sakala. So when you think of that question, what are some of the beliefs? Maybe if someone can just say one belief they have as a teacher and what shaped their belief. You can either put it in the chat or raise your virtual hand and let us hear your voice. Who are you and what experiences shape you as a teacher? When you were young and someone was asking you who you want to become and you said you want to become a teacher, what is it that was driving you to want to become a teacher?
You can type your responses in the chat.
I think what motivated me to become a teacher, I for one, because of wanting to make a change in our young ones so that they become independent and knowledgeable and impart skills in them. Because I was very much good at teaching my young ones when I come back from school, when I was at the primary level. So you could find that a lot of young ones could surround me in the afternoon or in the evening after classes. Then I could try to teach them. So elderly people who were able to see me helping their young ones, they could say, okay, Stanley, I think you need to become a teacher because you are able to, you like teaching the younger ones. Wherever you are, you have books. So through that, I got motivated, and I joined teaching. I went to a college to do teaching. That's what
Wow.
motivated me.
Wow. Thank you so much, Stanley. You wanted to make a change. You wanted to help the young ones. So that is what motivated you. So as we hold that on to that thought, for Stanley, he wanted to be a teacher because he wanted to help them. Now let's see how that moves us to principles, okay, as part of the reflective framework. So here they're saying principles are, what are your beliefs about assessment, okay? For example, now this one I adapted because we are talking about assessment. So you wanted to make a change in the young ones. So when it comes to assessment, what will guide your assessing? Will your assessing be guided by the fact that you want to make a change? And so that will also inform the types of assessment you're going to use, because your aim is to make a change, maybe to empower, okay? So if your aim is to judge, for example, maybe the kind of assessment that you would prefer is the summative assessment, just to test the learning rather than to test for learning, okay? So whatever philosophy you have will guide the principles that you're going to use even when you're doing your stuff as a teacher. So let's go to now the part for theory. What are the materials that you use in your classrooms to assess? Maybe someone can say something about that. What materials do you use when assessing? Do we have something in the chat, or someone wants to say something?
Materials that we use for assessment, we do continuous assessment tests for our case, and then we have an end term examination that we use for learner assessments.
Okay. Continuous assessment test and end term exams, yes. Okay, thank you, Roger.
Author says he uses CATS, classroom assessment techniques, and so does Leonard.
Okay.
We have Faith. Faith says she has been using dictation with her Form 1 learners every day. Matthew says several aims come into play other than gauging learners' progress. I would equally expect my assessment to critique, evaluate, and reinforce my pedagogies. Roger says he uses homework and assessment. Moses says he uses classroom assessment and homework. Arthur, he also says he uses random assessment tests.
Okay. Any more?
Oh yeah, we have. No, not at the moment.
Okay, thank you so much for your inputs and your feedback. Now, let's look at how now from theory to practice, right? So we use this assessment, some use homework, some use continuous assessment tests and all that. So now it's as we are talking about integration, then we're asking ourselves, to what extent does your context support ICT integration in the classroom? So we are reflecting on what is our belief, what is our philosophy, what drives us as teachers, what principles that, whatever shaped us to be teachers, what are the beliefs that now we have because of what shaped us to be teachers? Then what theories do we believe in terms of assessment, do we believe that for us to assess, we only have to use maybe continuous assessment tests that have been provided by the HOD? Can we be more maybe creative? Can we use homework? Someone talked about dictation and all that. But now in reality, in practice, to what extent are we able to integrate ICT in our classrooms? Okay. And then as we move from there, we ask ourselves beyond practice now, what is the impact of our assessment style? When you use dictation, how does that impact your learners? When you use continuous assessment tests, how does that impact your learners? When you integrate ICT, again, how does that impact your learners? Okay, so maybe before I move, can someone maybe just say something about how their assessment style and whether or not they integrate ICT impacts their learners? You can unmute. I know that's too long for someone to maybe type in the chat. If someone wishes to share, kindly unmute. How does your style of assessment impact your learners?
Maybe to say the assessments that we use, especially the continuous assessment tests, it helps the learners to get feedback and understand what they have mastered, what they still need to learn, areas that they are still weak in, areas of strength. So it basically gives us feedback and helps the learners to learn, especially from one another. Sometimes you find that they even compare notes. Where did you score and where did I miss it? Maybe why did I miss it? And how can I next time avoid missing it? So sometimes once you return back the assessment papers and reports, they compare notes and check, and they learn also from one another from the feedback that the teacher has given. Yes, that is it. For ICT, in assessment, maybe in teaching, we use, for my case, I use, but in assessment, maybe I may say we are still quite low at that point.
Okay, thank you so much, Rogers, for that very, very important input. Yes, Antonine, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Integration of ICT can help get instant feedback for the learner, and that will push them to go back to reading and even try to get the concepts that they have missed correctly, particularly in the areas where maybe they will only proceed once they have got the correct answers. This will push them to listen keenly because they know the content they are being given will require them to answer immediately. And that will improve their concentration, improve their reading, and acquisition of the content that is required from them.
Wow, thank you so much, Antonine, for that. I see Amoni's hand is up.
Yes, I have used different assessment ICT tools, and I think they have quite a number of how they affect learning. Tools such as Kahoot, if used in class and projected on the board, it can be quite useful for interactions in class. For example, you post a question, and if the students have gadgets, they answer, and then you can see how the numbers roll. If, for example, they're doing group work or they're doing it individually, you can rank order them. And in the end, you can show that the correct answer, and that helps. Like it's both fun and helps in learning. If you use a tool such as Google Classroom, there is the possibility to, or even just Google Docs, there is the possibility to collaborate with your student and get feedback, you get comments, you can use the suggestion mode so that you can correct the text or and you discuss it in comments together. So there is possibilities there, and there is normally a trail of how the thinking has evolved. And I think that's very useful. But there are also tools that can be quite discomforting and might actually stand in the way of learning. I will give the example of if, for example, you do your assessment using, sorry, I'm using a particular example, but this is one that might be discomforting, and particularly in terms of summative assessment. There is an assessment tool like exam.net, and there the teacher can set, can make the settings that if you have opened a browser tab, you're not even allowed to go out of that browser or it logs out. Therefore, as a student, when you're doing this test, you actually work on tension, making sure that you only concentrate on that tab. If you try to close your browser, then it shuts down because it looks at you as if you're cheating. And if you open another application, so really you're working with this one screen and on tension, and that can also be very discomforting. And I think I understand the point of preventing cheating, but it can be discomforting to the extent that one thinks more about staying on the tab than about what they should be writing in the test. So there are many pros and cons, of course. Then there are others about accessibility and whether it's by the possibility for one to be able to read on the screen or hear the sounds and others, but also there is the possibility to own a gadget or to access the gadget. So there are those, and the platforms, even if you have the gadget, some platforms are subscription. So there is all those things that might actually affect learning, or at least the equitable learning if the learners have different conditions.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
That is very, very great feedback. And those are the things we are reflecting about. We are reflecting on the pros and the cons. We are reflecting about what are our beliefs about assessment and integration, and our beliefs as teachers that affect our assessment, and how at the end of the day they're going to affect our learning. Thank you so much. So the article on assessment, I found it at the teachingenglish.org.uk website. You can go there for further reading. Just go to the menu. After you click on the teachingenglish.org.uk, go to the menu, publications, then resource books. Then under resource books, you can easily scroll down and choose a resource book you want. So that's how I found the reflective practices. You can go there and read some more. And you can also maybe just copy the whole of this link and get yourself there. You can take a screenshot of this if you may. Okay, now, I don't know how many people were able to watch our videos because we were supposed to have a party. But it's okay still. Even if you didn't watch, we are going to watch together. So at the end of this session, if we'll have time, I'll just run a poll to find out how many people watched beforehand. But for now, in the interest of time, we'll just go straight and watch this particular video. And the question I was asking before we watch it was, have you integrated ICT in your classroom before? If yes, how? And we've already received some feedback from Amoni. And if you have further feedback, you can place in the chat, but maybe we'll have more time to do that after this short video. So I'll stop sharing this, then I share this video so that we watch together. It's just less than 4 minutes. Can everyone hear the sound? Can you hear the sound?
Not yet.
really.
Okay.
Not
let
yet.
me
Not yet.
go back.
If you go to
Okay.
settings, you should be able to share the sound
All right.
to the video settings.
Okay. Let me stop sharing, then go to. Okay.
How you can start integrating
now hear?
ICT into your classroom.
Yes, now we can hear.
Many teachers are still reluctant to use new technologies in class. This is for a number of reasons. They're afraid that the students know more about technology than they do. They're uncertain about whether the technology will work. They often lack the training to know how best to use the technology. They don't have sound models on which to base their use of the technology. If you're in this position and you want to start using ICT, then a framework to guide you is the SAMR model. SAMR stands for Substitution, Augmentation, Modification, Redefinition, and it was introduced by Dr. Ruben Puentedura in 2006. SAMR is a tool for understanding how we can integrate ICT into our lessons and develop the way we use technology to have a transformative impact on learning. Let's look at the framework. Substitution. At this level, we're using technology in place of paper. The task remains the same, but a computer is used as part of that task. Here's an example. You find a text online and replace the text in your course book. Instead of reading a text in a book, your students read the text on the screen. There's no real functional change in what they're doing. Augmentation. At this level, we're using technology to replace a paper-based activity, but with some form of functional change or improvement. Building on the previous example of the replacement text, we also ask students to use some digital tools to mark up the text with notes, highlight specific areas to remember, and use an online dictionary to check the pronunciation of new vocabulary. Modification. At this level, technology allows for more significant task redesign. Again, building on the previous example, we now ask our students to share their reflections about the text on a blog. The posting is shared with the wider educational community. The students then comment on each other's posts. Then, the students meet together in a virtual classroom to discuss or debate the content. Redefinition. At this level, technology allows for the creation of new tasks that were previously not possible in the traditional classroom. Building further on our previous example, students work collaboratively online to research the background to the text. They create a digital survey on the topic of the text and use it to carry out genuine research through their social media networks. They then analyze the data from the survey and work together to create a video report of their findings. The steps in this example show how you can develop the way you use ICT as your confidence and knowledge increase. My top tip is to tell your students that you're trying something new. Get their feedback and find out what they think about the activities you try. Show them that you're also trying to learn and develop your skills.
So, what are your takeaways from that video? What are your takeaways? You can feel free to unmute. Feel free to unmute. We talked about, the video talked about different things. I had something like involving learners, and in case you're also learning to integrate ICT, it's okay to tell them that let's learn together. Yes, Antonina, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. I just wanted to say what you have said, but that most teachers would shy away from using ICT in their ICT in their lessons because of fear that the gadgets might fail, it might not work well the way they anticipated, and so they keep off that zone completely. And the video tells us that it is important to start, and you can start small. So using the summer model by substitution, that is, instead of using the items or written materials in books, you can use written materials on the computer, or even you project them so that the learners read using ICT. The augmentation, where this is, you can, after they read what is there, they can do the tasks with a bit of improvement of what was to be done on paper. Then the modification, where the tasks are more redesigned, like what we are talking about, the Kahoot, so that the feedback is instant. The students can see as the feedback is coming in as they work, and the redefinition of signs or creation of new tasks so that they can do research, they can find out more, to do more with ICT based on their communities or based on the small groups that they have. So this will expand their skills in as far as use of ICT is concerned. So my greatest takeaway is that it is always good to start. Once you start, no matter how jittery you are, with time you improve and you get your skills top-notch, just the way others. They did not, they were not born knowing it, but they started from somewhere. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. They started from somewhere. Yes, Prof. Eaton, go ahead and unmute.
Oh, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
To me, ICT is of great benefit to students because by my experience, most of my teaching years that I've taught, I've really used ICT, and I've just enjoyed the teaching itself. And for instance, there was last second term, I happened to use ICT to help my students to finish some topics, which was so good, and they even enjoyed more than a teacher appearing in front of them. So the challenge is we have a number of us as teachers who are really anti-ICT because of that issue of lack of technical know-how. And to me also, takeaway is just advising teachers to try the best they can to learn how to integrate ICT in teaching and learning. In fact, it makes work easier, especially when you are handling some topics which may seem not to be understood by students when you do physical appearance and teaching. With the current generation, these guys are they are equipped with ICT skills. The students, in fact, some of them have good phones, and even during holidays, we normally interact with them through ICT, those Kahoots, and they just receive assignments. They do, they return back a mark, and they just enjoy the whole thing. So it's a good thing integrating ICT into teaching and learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, hello.
We have some comments in the chat. We have Moses. He says, my takeaway is that ICT integration is progressive. Thank you so much, Moses. We have Amoni. He says, I think a key takeaway is around us as teachers, opening up to our students that we too are learning along the way. Not many are ready to show their vulnerability. Thank you so much. We have Leonard teaching using YouTube English speakers. Then we have Isaac. Isaac says it brings in the collaborative aspect. With this, there is synergy. Also, everyone feels that they have contributed in some way. Thank you, Isaac. And Ramatu says, I use WhatsApp platform with my students.
Okay, thank you so much. So these are the key takeaways as our colleagues have pointed, and you can take a screenshot of this, and we will also share these slides after the session. Redefine, substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. Now we can look at the next video very quickly. And I see Prof. Eaton hand is up. Maybe as I set up the video, you can just unmute and say something.
Not really. I think that is the previous hand.
It's the previous one, okay. So I'll now share the other video very quickly.
In this video, I look at how we can use ICT to develop our students' digital literacies and language skills. The biggest problem with ICT in the classroom is that the technology is in the hands of the teacher, not the students. The single computer classroom is a common feature of many schools. This teacher-controlled use of technology leads to a consumption model of technology use, where teachers use the computer to show websites, digital media, or digital course books. This gives the teachers access to a wider range of content, but it doesn't develop the students' digital literacies. To achieve maximum impact, we need to get technology into the hands of our students and teach them to become creators rather than consumers of content. The power of the internet lays in its capacity to give every person with digital skills a global voice. This is now more possible than ever. Widespread mobile phone ownership, combined with access to connectivity and lower costs of devices, has enabled a lot of schools to give students hands-on access to ICT in the classroom by providing low-cost devices or a bring-your-own-device policy that encourages students to use their own device. How can we improve our students' English and digital skills? Most phones are capable of recording video, so to help develop students' speaking and listening skills, get them to create videos. There are different types of videos they can make. Get students to create a news video about the things happening in the world that concern them. Get students to create a short documentary about some important aspect of their culture. Get students to create a how-to video sharing their skills with other people. Get students to create a cooking program or a soap opera. There are lots of possibilities. While students are creating videos together, they develop the soft skills involved in collaboration and teamwork, as well as the digital skills involved in recording, editing, and publishing video. They develop their English through script writing, creating appropriate graphics, and also performing in front of the camera. When students record themselves on video, they have the opportunity to evaluate their own speaking, body language, and the gestures they use. Shy students can use mobile devices to record their speaking and create their own podcast show. Like the videos, these could be news shows, something about their culture, or even a chat show with guest interviews. Students develop their digital literacies by getting experience of audio recording, editing, and publishing. They also listen to themselves speaking English and can reflect on and improve their performance. They get experience of sharing what they produce with the world, getting feedback, and growing an audience. So, my top tip is, put technology into the hands of students. Give them creative tasks that reflect their interests, and help them develop their language and digital literacy skills.
You're mute.
You're muted.
I'm talking very seriously. Yeah, sorry about that. So we talked about getting this technology in the hands of learners. And I know maybe people are asking themselves, because maybe the concept we have of assessment is only summative assessment, but we have the formative, as people mentioned, whereby we are assessing learning. Because as we shall see as we move, is that as you engage with learners during the learning before the summative time, you can actually see where they are at, you can give feedback, and it can lead to improvement. So some of the takeaways from this video, maybe one person can unmute and tell us something, and you can also put them in the chat so that we move to the next one.
Yes, Rukia.
Mm-hmm.
My takeaway, the opening statements in this video are really eye-opening. Most of us as teachers, we are the ones handling technology is in our hands. But you can see from there, we have a takeaway that we shift it from the hands of the teacher and we take it to the hands of the learner. Sometimes we have a lot of fear that if the learners know too much, then we might be rendered useless. But it is important that the learners are the ones who are learning. Let us allow them to interact with the ICT. Let them be in their hands so that it enhances their skills. They can acquire certain skills in language as they interact with these gadgets and these ICT materials, rather than the teacher is the one who controls and wants to have everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let us quickly go to the last video, then we'll come back.
In this
and
video,
share some
I want
more.
to share some insights into blended learning. First, a definition of blended learning. Blended learning is any form of learning that combines physical classroom learning I want to share some digitally mediated learning. Teachers who recommend websites for homework are engaging in blended learning is any form of learning that combines physical classroom that can empower our students with digitally mediated learning, digital literacies, and teachers who recommend websites for homework. Other blended learning models include remote lessons. This is a simple form of blended learning that can empower our students and expand their asynchronous digital literacies and autonomy. Blended learning can change the learning paradigm, include remote lessons, and help students to take more responsibility for their learning. Project work. Teachers can give students online materials to study before class. These materials can cover grammar and can change the learning paradigm using instructional videos, texts,
Sorry,
I guess there are and interactive exercises. Then, students come to class already prepared and can use class time to practice using them and help students to take more responsibility for their learning. Teachers can give students online materials to study before class. These materials can cover grammar and vocabulary input using instructional videos, texts, audio, and interactive exercises. Then, students come to class already prepared and can use class time to practice using the language with other students. This is called flipped learning. Blended learning isn't just a mixture of autonomous and teacher-directed classes. Learning platforms enable peer-to-peer learning through team-based project work, discussion forums, and collaborative online tasks. These help students develop valuable teamworking and collaboration skills. Teacher presence in the online part of the course helps ensure successful outcomes. Teachers can do virtual tutorials, drop into group work, moderate forums, and coach students through project work. A common question is, what percentage of the work should be online? To answer this question, consider what works better online or in the classroom. This links to how student feedback is delivered. Input such as vocabulary and grammar can be done online using video and interactive activities. Feedback for this is straightforward. There's a right and a wrong answer. The computer can tell the students whether they're right or wrong and give them feedback. Students can access reading or listening texts online and do interactive comprehension checks. The computer can tell the student whether their answers are correct or not. If reading and listening tasks require more complex answers, you can use forums so students compare and discuss their answers together. Writing activities are time-consuming. Putting writing activities online can save classroom time. There are programs that can help students with writing online. Some sophisticated artificial intelligence programs give students quite accurate feedback on their written work. There are still advantages to teacher feedback, but writing work can be marked using digital tools and feedback can be recorded using video or audio. Students can improve speaking and pronunciation online using video and audio, but they still need to practice with other people. Interacting with a person is different from recording yourself or from video conferencing. Responding to another person involves interpersonal skills and elements of body language that can't be simulated. So this is best done in the classroom. So, my tip is when blending learning, don't think about percentages. Think about what medium works best for the type of skills students need to develop and design your course around your students' needs.
If someone can unmute and share with us their takeaways, especially when it comes to what is it that can be assessed online? What is it that can be assessed in person? And how to match the use of the gadgets with the skills you want to impart in learners. Yes, go ahead. I hear someone speaking.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, yes. My takeaway from the blended learning is that it's easier to send assignments in advance to the students online. Then by the time they come to the classroom, they've already done some groundwork. And so blended learning will be very easy in that case. And then there's also the collaboration in class where they have teamwork in class. But then again, they can also get feedback from the computer and compare notes online. So there again, the teamwork can still be done online and in class. So the computer tells them how they have fared, and then they also tell each other what they've done and they compare notes. And in writing, AI can also give an accurate feedback. I've also learned that pronunciation and speaking can be learned online, but then when they practice in class, it's easier for them to listen to themselves and to each other. So again, they'll be blending the two. There's also the takeaway on the medium to use for the different courses you want. So do you want to go digital? Do you want to do oral skills and get AI to get you maybe a native speaker? So there are different kinds of medium that you can use for different courses. That's my takeaway. Thank you.
Profound. Thank you so much, Josephine. Prof.
Yes.
Eaton, I see your hand is up. Maybe before we move to the next slide.
Just to add on what my colleague has said, we can as well assess learners. A teacher can develop multiple choice questions and also time them using the ICT. They do it, and the response will be immediate because now the system will be the one marking, and they will enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So now, in addition to what our colleagues have said, you can just take a screenshot of this so that we move to the next slide. So here, I want us to briefly discuss the journey of assessment in Kenya. If you're not from Kenya, feel free to say something about your country. And I just want us to take like 1 or 2 minutes in this. In your view, how has assessment evolved in your country? And especially considering how emphasis has been laid for many years on summative assessment, to the extent every time we used to have maybe a KCSE. KCSE is the form for exams, or KCPE, you would hear of suicides and all that. So maybe in 1 minute, let's just give our views on how assessment has evolved in Kenya. If you're from Uganda or any other country, you can tell us something about how assessment has evolved in your country. Maybe Catherine, you can check if there's anything in the chat.
Not regarding the last question. Rukia? Hello?
Catherine?
Okay. Can I take the floor?
Yes, please do.
That's okay with everyone. In Uganda, assessment is really taking a very interesting direction. before, when much of the emphasis was put on summative assessment, it dictated how teachers taught. Teachers were almost teaching question and answer and eliminating everything else that was needed. For example, in teaching English language, I was seeing how teachers were deliberately eliminating communicative competences and replacing them with maybe templates. For example, you'd find someone who'd eliminate a section of teaching, maybe apology scenario where learners had to maybe practice an apology verbally. And then you'd find the learners are simply feeding in a template and probably writing an apology letter and placement for their competence. So you'd find that learners often found it very difficult to give a verbal apology. And most of them were very conversant with writing a letter of apology. So you'd find that maybe I thought a teacher would teach the communicative competence, and then later on learners could write an apology or write an apology later. So you'd find that summative assessment replaced teaching. So with the new change in the lower secondary school curriculum, we found that now that assessment is taking a different direction because we're incorporating project-based learning, you find that summative assessment might not be the best way to assess learners, given that we're incorporating so many theories together into teaching. We find that it's not that authentic. For example, I remember as a student, I studied French, and throughout my class or the lessons, the teacher never assessed us orally. We only got to know that we have an oral exam the day we were sitting for an oral examination, and that was the national exam.
Wow.
So that's very interesting. So with what is happening now in Uganda, we are struggling to shift from summative because now we're going to leave it to the finals, and then we have to shift to the continuous, which is formative, and we're trying to learn alternative assessment. And so that is the journey we are taking now. But most of us are struggling to shift from summative to formative and then embracing the alternative assessment methods. And again, these changes showed us that we lacked inclusivity in assessment and we lacked transparency in assessment. We could assess our learners with a marking guide, but we didn't have templates or rubrics.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you find that in such a class where we have summative assessment, it's very difficult for the learners to self-assess because they lack a rubric.
Wow.
An evaluation criteria to know how the gauging is done and all that kind of thing. So, but we're embracing it and we are preaching the gospel and we are creating awareness among educators to help them make informed choices, because now with this inclusion in classroom, it really needs a teacher who is very empowered to empower the learners. Otherwise, it would be like a blind man leading blind men. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's profound, Catherine. I'll quickly read the charts so that I move. Faith says 844 is assessment of learning as it evaluates cramming, not understanding, while CBC can be termed as assessment for learning as it also integrates use of ICT. Thank you so much, Faith. Sophie Okea says assessment for learning is the assessment done as learning takes place, and that is very correct. And Karina Olang says, we are yet to experience what CBC has in store in terms of assessment since the learners are yet to join senior school. However, 844 can head a pretty competitive assessment module that barely gives opportunity to real learning. The learning is only exam oriented. That's very true. And we have Danielle Eresa. In Ethiopia, teachers are accustomed to applying the continuous classroom assessment, CCA, but because of the large size of learners, I lost it. Okay. I lost that. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, because of less competence in English, it is not applied to the expected level. Okay, so I'll move to the next slides, and maybe when we find time, we can come back and read more about the journey of assessment. Thank you so much for all your inputs. I've seen all your inputs that have come in, only that I have to rush in the interest of time. Thank you, Immaculate. Thank you, Lillian and Isaac. So I'll quickly run through my experience with assessment, integration of ICT in assessment. Last year, we had a program that we call Fluent U. We were doing this with secondary school learners, and we were working with debates, poetry, and essay writing. So this was done virtually, and when we were doing it virtually, learners could give each other feedback on the charts, and also one of our facilitators, who was Mina Gavel, she was also like engaging them from the charts and all that. So we were able to integrate ICT in assessment in this manner. And then after we were through with like when we were doing the follow-ups, what the learners were doing, like this is for an essay that was done by a student from Hamis High School called John Derrick. And we posted this in our social media on our Facebook, and we could see feedback, like likes and those emojis. Then we've also done like in the Women History Month, we did something with teachers and shared with everyone, and people placed their sentiments in the Padlet. So we used Padlet for assessments and for feedback, let's say, assessing what people are saying about that particular month and all that. And if you're using this with your learners, probably there's a way you can see how far maybe they can write complete sentences and all that. And then feedback, they could be peer feedback from each other. We did the same for climate and had submissions also on Padlet. And this is how we've used social media. And at times we do like WhatsApp chats and we get feedback there. At times you get the emojis, and at times people actually say something about it. And the question that I'm asking myself is the use of social media for feedback, and how can we encourage good participation when it comes to this? And probably as we move, we can get to see more ideas. And I think we've already answered this, what feedback is. I think we've mentioned types of feedback and what makes it effective. Maybe these are things we should reflect on, like, is it positive? Is it about the performance? Is the learner aware of what they're supposed to improve? Okay. And I think many more, you can throw them in the chat if you may. And as I was looking at how we've been assessing, some of the observations I made was the use of emojis. And I asked myself, to what extent can emojis give actual feedback? But probably you can use this as sentence starters, or maybe to probe further, you can ask your learners why they felt that article, for example, needs a smiley, okay? And maybe that you can prompt. You can even group your learners into all those who did smiley faces, all those who did the love hearts or thumbs up. You group them together and have them discuss what are the reasons as to why they did that, and they'll be doing peer assessment. We can have the written feedback on the charts. We can have them like 2 stars and a wish. What is it that they found was good, and what is it that they wish changed in that particular article or something? We can use class emails and so on and so forth. So these were my observations, and maybe also another recommendation is to create rubrics so that even as your learners engage with ICT, they are able to know what is expected of them. They know that the rules of maybe them sharing in the blog is that they need to say something beyond emojis and all that. So now we are going to go to a practical part, and I want to invite Jen to lead us in this session.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Rukia. That was such a reflective session there. Thank you for everyone who is contributing. We are learning together, and we appreciate your time and how resourceful you are as colleagues across Sub-Sahara. So mine is just to take you through the practical orientation and looking at integrating ICT for learners, assessment and feedback in a low resource context. So let's go back to the first. Thank you. So in the different contexts around Kenya, East Africa, and also across Africa, we have, I do not believe we are well equipped with ICT, to be able to teach effectively. So how can we still integrate ICT even in a low resource context? So my journey of using ICT has been an interesting one. In the new curriculum, that is CBC here in Kenya, we have, it has given us an opportunity to be able to use ICT. And again, ICT provides an opportunity to also be creative, even as a teacher, as it also creates an environment for learners also to be creative. But as teachers, we can also be creative. So as we give assessment, since I am a teacher of English in a CBC context, one of the assessment is normally listening and speaking, writing, and reading. And we normally give learners or read for learners a story where they're supposed to answer question, testing their listening skills. And since when it comes to assessment, we want to assess every individual learner and get to know how much are they able to grasp when it comes to listening skills. So you can have, I know many teachers here teach very large classroom, and in a public setup, we normally have even over 50 learners, others even have 100 learners. And you're supposed to assess each and every learner. So you can imagine you're given a paragraph, you're supposed to read for the learners a paragraph and then ask them questions. It becomes tedious. It's such a tedious exercise because if you're going to read 100 learners, you can imagine, and you need for them, you don't want to read for them once. It's only fair that you read for them maybe 2 or 3 times. So in such an exercise, it's time consuming, it is tedious because you have to read 300 times, can you imagine? Or let's say just 150 to say the least. So when we sat down even in the Department of English and we were looking at this exercise, and we have to, because this is a national exam besides what you give in the classroom, because we have NEC, which is the national body where it provides assessment for learners across the country. And they are supposed to test listening skills. So as a department, we sat down and we looked how best can we assess our learners. And we, as teachers, we have smartphones, and that is why we are able to join this meeting here. Grateful that at least teachers have these gadgets. It may not be available for all the learners, but it is available for us. So what we did is we record ourselves reading for the learners. Then when the learner comes, because you have to assess them individually, you play the recording. And this became a very easy exercise and easy for the teacher. Even when it comes to time, it was easy for both the teacher and the learner. So I want us to take you through a practical way, or the practical way we handled this. So we can go to the next slide, please. So we are going to be assessing listening skills. I think you can see the picture there. Maybe someone can say what they see in that picture. What can you see? Someone? Anyone?
Hello, I can see something like a pig. A pig.
Thank you, sir. There's a pig there in the what else?
I think a black sheep.
Hazy. I see hazy mountains in the background. Thank you so much, guys. So I'll have Rukia play the audio. So please listen keenly to the recording. It's a story about these two animals, and then we are going to answer questions. So to be fair, Rukia, I would request that you play it 2 times. Yes.
The pig and the sheep.
So please, you can increase your volume on your end in case you do not hear. So we can start now. Thank you, Rukia.
Let me know if you can hear.
Yes, it was audible. Thank you.
One day a shepherd discovered a fat pig in the meadow where his sheep were pastured. He very quickly captured the porker, which squealed at the top of its voice the moment the shepherd laid his hands on it. You'd have thought to hear the loud squealing that the pig was being cruelly hurt, but in spite of its squeal and struggles to escape, the shepherd tackled his prize under his arm and started off to the butcher's in the marketplace. The sheep in the pasture were much astonished and amused at the pig's behavior and followed the shepherd and his charge to the pasture gate. "What makes you squeal like that?" asked one of the sheep. The shepherd often catches and carries off one of us, but we should feel very much ashamed to make such a terrible fuss about it like you do. "That is very well," replied the pig, with a squeal and a frantic kick. "When he catches you, he's only after your wool, but he wants my bacon." What is the moral of the story?
So there's a question there. What is the moral of the story? So we are going to now listen to the audio
And the
once
sheep.
more.
One day a shepherd discovered a fat pig in the meadow where his sheep were pastured. He very quickly captured the porker, which squealed at the top of its voice the moment the shepherd laid his hands on it. You'd have thought to hear the loud squealing that the pig was being cruelly hurt, but in spite of its squeal and struggles to escape, the shepherd tackled his prize under his arm and started off to the butcher's in the marketplace. The sheep in the pasture were much astonished and amused at the pig's behavior and followed the shepherd and his charge to the pasture gate. "What makes you squeal like that?" asked one of the sheep. The shepherd often catches and carries off one of us, but we should feel very much ashamed to make such a terrible fuss about it like you do. "That is very well," replied the pig, with a squeal and a frantic kick. "When he catches you, he's only after your wool, but he wants my bacon." What is the moral of the story?
Thank you very much. So what is the moral of the story? We have listened. Is there anyone who needs us to repeat the audio? Was it good? Is it okay?
Yes, it was a very good video.
What is the moral of the story? What is the moral of the story? We can raise our hands or we can write on the chat box.
So, audio, please repeat it again, please.
Sorry? Anyone?
Could you please repeat once again?
Oh, thank you so much. We can repeat it once more. Here, please.
The pig and the sheep. One day a shepherd discovered a fat pig in the meadow where his sheep were pastured. He very quickly captured the poker, which squealed at the top of its voice the moment the shepherd laid his hands on it. You would have thought to hear the loud squealing that the pig was being cruelly hurt, but in spite of its squeal and struggles to escape, the shepherd tackled his prize under his arm and started off to the butcher's in the marketplace. The sheep in the pasture were much astonished and amused at the pig's behavior and followed the shepherd and his charge to the pasture gate. "What makes you squeal like that?" asked one of the sheep. The shepherd often catches and carries off one of us, but we should feel very much ashamed to make such a terrible fuss about it like you do. "That is very well," replied the pig, with a squeal and a frantic kick. "When he catches you, he's only after your wool, but he wants my bacon." What is the moral of the story?
Yes, Jane, we have some answers in the chat.
Thank you.
We have Moni. He's telling us the moral of the story. Being in the same situation could mean different consequences for different actors, participants, or victims. We have Mercy. Mercy says we should not judge others harshly. They may be going through worse situations than us. Pauline, we should not be so judgmental. And we have Berthwell, more of the story is to be empathetic in situations that people go through. Also, to be aware of the log in your eye before seeing the peg in others. Anton, a more of the story is judge gently. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wow, those are very, very wonderful takeaways. And I don't think anyone is wrong. I think we are good. So in this audio recording, I have given out the story, or I have read the story, and then it also comes with a question. Again, please play for us the audio.
It is easy to be brave when there is no danger. Don't compare two different situations without understanding them.
Thank you very much. Is it possible to play the answer again, the moral of the story?
When there is no danger, don't compare two different situations without understanding them.
Thank you very, very much. So, I can see there's one, we should never judge others without giving them a chance to explain themselves. So thank you very much. You can go back to the slide. So that was an example of how we can assess listening skills to our learners. Let's go to the next slide. So how do we prepare for this audio? One is identify a story, a poem, article, or comprehension, etc., etc. Then get a quiet place where there is no background noise. It is very important to have that. Then do a pre-recording session. Record as many times as possible until you're satisfied with the audio recording. So, what is the importance of audio assessment? One is that you can use it in the future. This is a resource that you have created that you can use in one class. You can also use in another class, maybe in different contexts, but this is something that you can use in future. Then we also know that an audio makes work easier for the teacher. You do not have to read the poem or the article like 300 times, because it's only fair that if you read for the first learner 2 or 3 times, it's only fair that you, even though you are tired, you read for the last learner, or maybe the 50th learner, the same amount of time. So it makes work easier for the teacher, and also it also brings a lot of fairness. Anyone else who think why is an audio assessment important? We can also put it at the top. Yes. So that is one way we can assess listening skills. Let's go to the next part. Anyone? Are there any chat there? Okay. No.
Karen?
So,
No, there.
sorry?
No, there isn't, Jane. I just wanted to add something. When a teacher listens the burden, it's easy for them to manage classroom and look for other aspects. As learners are listening, probably you could look around and manage effectively than being overburdened with lots of tasks at the same time.
Very important. Sure. Thank you so much, Catherine. Anyone else like to share their input? Okay.
I think we can proceed.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. So giving feedback using audio recording. As we use ICT tools to be able to give assessment to a learner, how also can we use them to give feedback to our learners? Again, remember, we are still having that low resource context. And we want to look at what is readily available, or what do we have in our hand. So what I know is that we have smartphones. I think everyone here is able to join because they have smartphones, or maybe they have computers. Then we also have school computers. A majority of schools nowadays have an ICT room or computer lab. If not, please let us know. How many of you, let's do a poll. You can put thumbs up if you have a computer lab in your institution. If you have a computer lab, let's see by a show of hands. Do you have computer or ICT rooms in your school? Please put a thumbs up and the reaction. Okay, thank you. I can see Antonin. Thank you, Antonin. Thank you. If you have an ICT room or computer lab in your school, do you have Sami? Thank you, Sami. Okay, thank you so much for that. So, so these are some of the things that are available in our institutions and also available for the teacher. Then the next point is, as you go through learners' work, you can record yourself and give your learner feedback. Initially, when I was in school, my teacher would mark my essay or my composition and scribble something like SP. When I have a grammar error, they would circle around that word. Just if there was an error in that essay, they would just circle and not comment anything. Or maybe after they have already read, they write a few comments down. So it took a while for me to know what SP meant. I discovered much later through other learners that SP meant spelling or spelling mistake. So sometimes even as we give our learners feedback and we are not explaining to them where probably the errors are, they just take the paper and probably not go through it because they're not interested, or they're probably not interested, or probably they will not understand. But we can use audio recording to share our feedback with our learners. So share the recording with your students. How can we do that? So as you mark those essays, you can record yourself and say, for example, this is very good work. In paragraph A, you have given a good introduction, you have built. If there's any error, you also quote that. Just a short, not really a lot of information, but, and then you record it on your phone. Then you can save it or share it in the learners' school computers, where now you can take your learners to the ICT rooms. They go and listen to their record, to their feedback, and make correction where necessary. And this can also they can also do it within in the course of their free time. So why is it important? So learners can also refer to it in the future, and it gives the learners an opportunity or opportunities to interact with the ICT tool. So these are some of the ways that you can use basic technology to give feedback to your learner and also assess your learner. The same way you can use videos again to give feedback to your learners. You can also use videos to create assessments and content for future learning. So anyone else, anyone with a comment, I would love to add to that on the importance of using or giving feedback using audio recording. Anyone?
Nothing so far. I think they're still reflecting.
So these are some of the ways I have been able to use basic technology in my, or integrated it in my classroom to assess and also give feedback to my learner. Thank you very much. In case of anything, please feel free to put it in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. You know, when you talked about SP, it also reminded me of those times when you could get a very big red X on the whole page. And that actually left trauma. So you're very right when you say that we need to give feedback in a way that our learners can understand. So now we are at the tail end of our session, and we talked about use of Kahoot. So you want to just practice on the use of Kahoot. The one that I'm using is the free version that allows only free players. So if anyone is able to go to www.kahoot.it, then I'll share right away here the pin of the game, and then we can launch it and see how it works. www.kahoot.it. So I'll go to Kahoot. And if anyone is there, and if you're there, you can, I don't know if you can see the pin that is generating on my screen. So the pin is 36. If someone is there, the pin is 368969. Any 3 people who join, I'll appreciate. You can do teamwork if you're maybe projecting this. Bethel is already there. If you're projecting this on your screen, maybe in the class, Wanga is there, you can, and Paula is there, so we can start. You can have them in teams if you're like integrating. I hope you've started. Okay. Wow. Okay. Someone is leading. Next question. I'm sorry, I see some people are still trying to join, but we've surpassed the limit of players because I'm using the free version. Bethel is on the lead. And I see it's giving you feedback. I'm sure it's giving you feedback. Yay, Paula, Wanga, and our winner is Bethel. Yay! Yeah, so that's how you use Kahoot, and learners can really enjoy such. And I think it's been giving feedback even as you are moving. So that's how we can use Kahoot, and it motivates learners. Maybe the people who played can give us feedback, and we can move on to the next. Or even if you are watching, maybe one or two people can give us feedback so that we move and finish maybe a session. Is someone unmuted? Someone wants to speak? Maybe Bethwell, Paula, and Wanga, if you want to say something about what you felt while you were answering the questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Helen from Nakuru chapter. I was Wanga, and I think that is very key, especially to when you want to test a wide range of skills, especially the multiple choice questions. then you'll be able to cover a wide range of subjects. It's also timed, so at least it's challenging to the learners, and it is rewarding because it ranks the learners at the end. You get to have number 1, 2, and 3, so you can celebrate the learners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wanga. And in the interest of time, maybe I'll just go to this particular part, which is our final part. And it's a work plan that we've shared here with an example. You can take a picture so that maybe you pick one thing and go implement with your learners, and you can share the feedback to us on elpakenya@gmail.com, or you can even share in our WhatsApp community of practice. So an example is you may choose blogging, for example, for learners. So what's your timeline? Because when you have a timeline, then you can implement something. What resources do you need? You remember when we were talking about the framework for reflection, you need to ask yourself, when you're going to do it practically, what's at your disposal? So for example, for blogging, you can use your laptop, you can use your mobile phone. If it's a tertiary institution, maybe you allow learners to come with their own devices and the like. Then activities involved could be something like rubric creation, account creation in the blogs platforms, generation of a theme, and maybe PowerPoint slides and all that. Then expected barriers, maybe lack of devices. Then the mitigation could be use of teachers or parents' devices. So you can take a picture of this and give us feedback through elpakenya@gmail.com or on our WhatsApp group. And back to you, Catherine.
Hey, thank you so much, Rukia. Thank you so much, Jane. Thank you to our participants who have actively engaged in the activities. Well, I'll welcome any questions from the presentations. I'm sure many of you are reflecting before we finally give the key takeaways from the presentations. We welcome any questions. Over to you, participants. Mercy says this is very informative. Thank you. You're most welcome, Mercy. We are eagerly looking forward to any questions regarding what has been shared by Jane or Rukia. Any reflections that came upon as you were listening to the presentations? Thank you so much, Isaac. Isaac says these are great presentations and very practical. Thank you. We shall give a minute to see if you can get any question, or if you're very comfortable, you can unmute and ask the question directly. Thank you, Anthony. Thanks for the good presentations. Thank you. Thank you so much for attending. Yes, Amoni.
Yes, I think my reflection concerns the experience of not participating in the Kahoot as a student. Well, it speaks to the to the question of access to resources. I mean, I tried to get in, but I was not I was probably the fifth or so, and so I could not get in. And I think many others tried. So what you felt is exactly what your student will feel if the activity involves using a gadget or accessing a platform that they cannot just have because of their circumstances or the setup of that activity and the platform. So that's something I think we need to reflect on, and it's good that it came in this practical activity so we can experience it also from the perspective of the student. So we need to think about that as teachers. That's something I felt. But maybe someone felt it as a good riddance. Teachers, please say if it felt good to not to be locked out, please just.
I like those reflections.
Sure. No, thanks,
Yeah.
Amoni. Thanks, Amoni. Yeah, he's actually alerting us on being very inclusive as we integrate these various tools into assessment. We have to be very mindful, and we have to ensure that we incorporate various tools and methods such that we are inclusive. I think that is what Amoni is trying to tell us. Thank you so much, Amoni. We have a question in the chat.
As you read the question, you can also use like teams. You can do teams if you're doing in a class where you're projecting, so that you include as many of your students as possible. So this is something that alerts us to the availability of resources, but also gives us a way to think of Plan B. Thank you.
Okay, Jane, someone is asking for how do they join the WhatsApp group? I think Jane will get to you. We want to learn something new every day. Great presentation. Sure. Personal development has no limit. You're your only limit, by the way. Thank you so much. Do we have any further questions regarding the reflections from what has been shared before we come to give the key takeaways?
Hello.
Yes, please. You're welcome.
Well, it's really it's being a brilliant presentation.